So folks, it's time for new Hearthstone cards. The mini set has been announced. It is Return to Naxxramas, and as you can see behind me, we got some very shiny new cards to talk about, some Death Knight cards specifically in this video, including this new Colossal minion, Frost Queen Sindragosa. We've also got a new location and presumably a lot more cards coming over the course of the weekend. Real quick, before I get into these though, let's take a look at the blog post, kind of do some news alongside the card review here. The Lich King calls on you to return to Naxxramas. This is hitting on February 14th. Seems like it's going to have basically the same size as normal, except it looks like maybe 3 additional Death Knight cards, going from 35 to 38 distinct cards in this case. It's going to be 2,000 gold or 1,500 runestone, so nice to see that the gold is still available. Here's a little teaser for the other cards I haven't shown you quite yet, and there's also a really interesting text teaser here I wanted to talk about. The mini set also includes new dual type minion creations, which we're going to see in this video, advanced synergies, and a terrifying new way to win the game. It sounds like we're going to have an alternate win condition card pop up at some point. We don't get too many of those, but they're always fun when we do the Mechathuns of the world and so on. So that is the blog post. I'll drop a link down there in the description if you want to read a little bit more about that. But for now, let's do a card review on all these shiny new Death Knight cards, kicking it off with a new Colossal. First off, really cool that they're revisiting Colossals, even though that was the keyword for Voyage to the Sunken City. It's always nice at the final mini set of the year. They kind of revisit stuff throughout the course of the year and hit those old keywords so that we catch it one last time in a given rotation year. And with Frost Queen Sindragosa, this is a big old 7-mana 6/6. It also does something interesting. Look at those runes. We have mixed runes here, blood and frost. So this cannot be in a triple rune deck. Right now in Death Knight, we mostly see triple rune decks. There has been a rainbow deck kind of floating around really the last few days. But triple rune is typically what we've seen for Death Knight so far. But if you want to run Frost Queen Sindragosa, you're not running triple rune. You can do double blood, single frost, or double frost, single blood, but you're going to have one of each. Now that said, I think this card's probably going to be a great fit for some of the more control-y styles of play we see in Frost and in Blood, kind of fusing some freeze and some stall and some heal together. Seems like it could be a great way to work with Sindragosa because her effect here, she's got these 2 wings. Each of those will freeze any character damaged by this minion. So you can trade those into your opponent's stuff and freeze it. And then this text on Sindragosa, after an enemy minion is frozen, destroy it. So these are both just like little assassinates. Trade them in and your opponent's stuff is going to die. So kill 2 minions, deposit a 6/6, and leave this potential synergy on board. Or if your opponent doesn't deal with Sindragosa, then their next board might get really easily removed on the back of the Sindragosa. Or if you have other freeze effects, there's the Icy Touch, there's the Howling Blast. If you had enough mana, you could have the Frostworm's Fury follow up to wipe out an entire board. So some definite synergies in the Frost pool here to make Sindragosa good, but I don't know that you need them. I think sometimes just, taking a nice swing on board, getting a 6/6, killing a couple big scary things very efficiently on the back of these wings is probably going to feel like a good play in many cases for a deck that's already taking things probably rather slow. I don't know that you can afford to do this in, a faster deck, a tempo-driven deck. This is going to feel like it's not creating enough pressure, and the swing won't feel as significant, and the stall won't feel as significant. But the threat and removal in a slower deck, where the persistent effect here could be really annoying if they don't deal with it, that can create some real friction for the opponent. Like, I have to deal with this Sindragosa or they're just going to completely wipe out my board over and over again. Some decks aren't great at doing that if they're a little bit too reliant on minions, for instance. So this could lock out games, I think, in some cases. So really, really fun to see Sindragosa show up as a Colossal. I think a pretty promising card for those slower styles of play we see in Frost and Blood. Is it going to be a limitation that this requires you to run multiple runes? That does seem like a potential blocker a little bit, because there are so many great triple blood and great triple frost cards you want to run. But I think over time we'll see more and more Death Knight decks delve into the rainbow side of things, delve into combinations, and I'm sure Sindragosa therefore will find a home. So next up is a location for Death Knight. I did think it was a little odd we hadn't seen a location at all in this expansion, let alone one for Death Knight, but here we're getting a nice location for Death Knight. It is the Construct Quarter. It is a 3 mana, 3 durability location, and it will allow you to destroy a friendly minion to summon a 4/5 undead with Rush. So a couple potential synergies here. Great way to activate any death rattles if you got some egg style decks. Great death rattles you're looking to activate. You both get that nice death rattle, but also get a 4/5, which that's really pretty good. Even in the turn you play this, 3 mana, if you got something lingering around on board, trading that up into a 4/5 might be a really nice little swing that gets you into play immediately, since that has Rush. And then long term, of course, you've got things like your hero power that can feed into this as well. Just make that hero power swing face for 1 and then actually turn that minion into something really useful. And since, the future uses of this aren't going to cost any mana, that's going to create some really big tempo plays. Like on turn 5, for instance, that 4/5 I think will still be pretty darn relevant. So play this on 3, skip that turn 5, you're going to get some really nice opportunities here off the Construct Quarter. In total, getting 3 4/5s with Rush for 3 mana seems like a great trade up. And this is not rune typed, we see, so a lot of flexibility here on this one. I can see this working really nicely in Unholy decks in particular, with all the various small minions and little tokens left behind and death rattles. They might be able to utilize this quite nicely. So pretty cool to see a location for Death Knight, and I think this one actually has a lot of promise. And then our final card here is the Rhyme Scale Siren, a new 3 mana single frost rune 2/3 undead Naga. Sounds like we're going to get a lot more dual type minions based on that teaser. And this one in particular has a battle cry: if you've cast 3 spells while holding this, freeze 3 random enemy minions. Now remember, we just saw Syndragosa at 7 mana. This is 3 mana. That's a pretty nice combo there. As I tease Marvel Snap cards, people are like, what are these? This isn't Hearthstone. But if you get to a 10 mana turn, this could be a really nice little 1-2 punch board clear sort of thing. You wouldn't even need to trade in your rushers. You could leave those behind, create some extra tokens and stuff, perhaps, depending on how many minions are on board. You might have to, but some potential here. And we're seeing more freeze options for Death Knight, so it seems like this is a little bit of a synergy we might expect to see do some work in Frost moving forward. I will say, this 3 spell trigger is not difficult for Frost at all. They're casting so many spells, they're duplicating spells, lots of cheap spells. So I think that'll go off rather nicely. And this is not a card you're looking to play on turn 3, of course, but setting this up for, a turn 5, turn 6 or something to stabilize, slow down the opponent, that seems pretty useful to me. As we know, freezes can be pretty limiting and pretty frustrating. And even though this isn't a fully wide board freeze, 3 minions is often going to feel that way. It's going to shut down a lot of different board states, particularly in combination with removal that can perhaps isolate the correct targets. So all in all, yeah, this feels like, again, a pretty nice tool for some of these slower Death Knight decks out there. So I think we got, a couple cards that are good for slower, grindier, controllier decks, and then probably this location is going to be well suited for a little bit faster decks. So a mix of different things here, but 3 interesting designs nonetheless. And I'm very happy to see Colossals and locations in particular. Maybe not quite as happy to see freezes, but we'll see how it goes. Frost Queen Syndragosa is a 4-star card. Construct Quarter is a 4-star card. Rhyme Scale Siren is a 3-star card. And there you go, folks. That's a pretty quick review this time around. Only a few cards to talk about. I'm sure we'll get a lot more over the course of the weekend, so stay tuned for more return to Naxxramas card reviews. But share your thoughts on these cards. What do you expect to see from the rest of the set? I want to hear all those thoughts and more in the comments below. But until then, thanks so much for watching. And until next time, game on.